For 9 centuries, this cross hid a secret in plain sight. Beneath its gleaming rock crystal lay something no one expected to find. When experts removed the central setting in 2010, they discovered that museum descriptions had repeated the same mistake for nearly 2 centuries. But the misidentified metal was only the beginning. I'll show you the symbol carved into a part of the cross that was never meant to be seen once it had been assembled. We'll examine the Latin inscription that reveals exactly what the missing chamber was designed to hold. And I'll tell you how a Catholic priest once concealed this enormous cross beneath his cassock and attempted to carry it out of Dublin. Today, we'll retrace the entire journey of the Cross of Cong, from its royal commission to a brazen theft attempt and a discovery made almost 900 years later. Watch until the end, because the ancient inscription reveals what was meant to be hidden inside. But it leaves one disturbing question unanswered. Who emptied the heart of one of Ireland's greatest medieval treasures? The story of the Cross of Cong doesn't begin in monastic silence. It begins with a decision made by a man fighting for power over all of Ireland. In 1122, the High King Turlough O'Connor, also known as Turlough O'Connor, acquired a relic believed to be a fragment of the cross on which Christ was crucified. For a medieval ruler, this was not just a splinter of wood. Possessing such a relic could mean more than winning another battle. Written sources place the acquisition of the relic in 1122. The Annals of Tigernach record that the Cross of Christ was brought to Ireland in 1123 and then displayed in various parts of the country. There's no contradiction here. The relic was acquired first and delivered to the island the following year. Turlough then asked to keep a portion of it in Ireland and ordered a reliquary worthy of it to be made. The commission went to Roscommon, one of the most important centers of O'Connor territory. The craftsmen were tasked with making not an ordinary church cross, but a reliquary that could both hold the relic and display it to the faithful. The result was a cross 760 millimeters tall and 480 millimeters wide. It was carried in solemn processions before senior church officials and set on the altar the rest of the time. At the center of the cross was the point of it all, a space for the presumed fragment of the true cross. It was set beneath a large, polished piece of rock crystal through which worshippers could see the relic without touching it. The relic was enclosed and protected, yet visible. The Latin inscription on the shaft said it plainly: "This cross covers the cross on which the Maker of the world suffered." But how genuine was the sacred fragment itself? In the 12th century, no one could examine the wood or verify its origin with modern methods. The church's endorsement, the donor's authority, and the people's faith were enough. So it's more accurate to speak not of a proven piece of the Cross of Calvary, but of a relic that people of the time believed to be part of the true cross. For Turlough O'Connor, that was more than enough. He had acquired a relic of nationwide significance and enclosed it in one of the most expensive, most masterfully crafted objects of his age. The cross was meant to speak without words. Its patron was wealthy, devout, and worthy of standing above every other Irish ruler. Behind the shine of gold and rock crystal, a much larger game of politics was already taking shape. What was carried before medieval crowds was never just a church cross. It was a carefully staged performance of power, faith, and wealth. The Cross of Cong rose 76 centimeters above the procession, its crossbar spanning 48 centimeters. At just 3.5 centimeters thick, it was large, yet manageable enough for ceremonial use. Its core was a cross carved from oak. The wood gave the whole structure its shape and strength, and over it, the craftsmen laid sheets of metal and cast decorative plates. For a long time, it was believed the cross was covered in bronze, but as you're about to find out, A later investigation would overturn even that. The casing was actually made of sheet and cast brass. Gold, silver, niello, glass, and enamel were layered over it. The shape of the cross mattered too. Its arms flared outward, forming large decorative fields visible even from a distance. Openwork plates, interlaced animals, and glittering inlays turned the reliquary into something impossible to ignore. As the procession moved, metal and glass caught the light. The cross would have seemed to flash before the crowd's eyes. But all of that splendor served as a frame for one small point at the center. Where the shaft met the crossbar sat a large polished rock crystal, mounted in a raised conical setting surrounded by gold filigree, niello, and blue and white glass inlays. No one's eye could avoid landing there. Beneath that transparent stone lay the presumed fragment of the true cross. It wasn't sealed in a closed box or hidden behind a metal lid. The design let believers see the relic through the crystal while keeping it out of reach of human hands. In the 12th century, that kind of display made an overwhelming impression. Here was an object the Church tied directly to the Passion of Christ. The cross was carried in solemn processions before the archbishop, the clergy, and the assembled faithful, turning the relic's appearance into a public event. On ordinary days, it stood on the altar as the central object of worship. That's where the true cleverness of the design lay. From a distance, the cross read as a lavish symbol of church authority. Up close, attention shifted to the transparent stone and to what lay beneath it. A person first saw gold, silver, and intricate ornament, and then a small fragment of wood believed to be sacred. The outer splendor amplified the significance of a relic that was almost impossible to see. Today, that composition looks unfinished. The oak core survives, the metal casing remains in place, the rock crystal still covers the central cavity. Only the most important thing is missing: the contents the entire cross was built around. The precious display case survived 9 centuries. What was exhibited inside it vanished, at a time and under circumstances nobody can name. The Cross of Cong wasn't built as a modest container for a small splinter of wood. It was turned into a showcase for everything the finest Irish craftsmen of the early 12th century were capable of. Beneath the precious surface lay an oak core, but a viewer barely saw any wood at all. It was enclosed in sheet brass and covered with cast decorative plates. Gilding, silver foil, niello, and silver inlay were applied over the metal base. The surface was finished with gold filigree, hairline wire patterns that demanded extraordinary precision. A single slip could have ruined the whole composition, yet the master pulled together dozens of details into a unified surface. Even the central crystal setting became a standalone work of jeweler's art. Color mattered as much as precious metal. Blue and white glass and enamel were set into the mounts, standing out sharply against gold, silver, and dark niello. In candlelight or daylight, the surface never looked static. Some details flared, others fell into shadow, and the transparent stone at the center kept pulling the eye back. What stood before people wasn't simply a cross. It was a glittering display case for one of the most venerated relics in Christendom. The cross's real value was never in the amount of gold. Its ornament fused several artistic traditions that had been meeting and colliding across Ireland for centuries. From older Irish art, the craftsmen inherited the intricate interlace typical of treasures from the 8th and 9th centuries. Alongside it appeared the elongated animal figures and ribbon patterns of the Scandinavian Urness style. That unmistakable pattern, the thin, interlocking bodies of fantastical beasts, was born in the world of the Vikings in the 11th and 12th centuries.
You might have seen it carved on the prows of longships or on Scandinavian runestones. Not long before, Viking raiders had been burning Irish monasteries and carrying off captives. Now their visual language was woven into the decoration of Ireland's greatest holy relic. Yesterday's enemies left their mark not only in chronicles and ruined settlements, but in the church's most important treasure of the age. That's how the Cross of Cong became an object where ancient Ireland, Viking legacy, and 12th century church politics all converged. Its maker didn't copy a single template. He fused different traditions into one coherent composition. The cross is considered the crowning achievement of a long era of Irish ecclesiastical metalwork. Nothing made after it ever again reached that particular fusion of complexity, wealth, and symbolic meaning. For nearly 2 centuries, museum catalogs repeated the same claim. The Cross of Cong was covered in bronze plates. That description was copied from entry to entry and almost never questioned. But in 2010, while the reliquary was being prepared for an exhibition at Turlough Park, the old version had to be revised. An inspection by specialists at the National Museum of Ireland found that researchers had gotten even the primary metal wrong. Before the move, the cross went to the museum's conservation department. Specialists needed to determine whether the ancient structure could survive the trip from Dublin to County Mayo. During the examination, they found traces of several earlier interventions. The last known investigation had taken place back in the 1960s, and its results didn't give a full picture of the reliquary's internal condition. The new inspection established that the decorative casing wasn't made of sheet bronze at all, as had long been claimed. The medieval craftsmen had used sheet and cast brass. The difference matters. Bronze is an alloy of copper, mainly with tin, while brass is an alloy of copper with zinc. For decades, one of the defining characteristics of Ireland's most famous treasure had simply been wrong. And the old description's errors didn't stop there.
Beneath the metal cladding sat the oak core that gave the whole cross its shape and strength. The examination showed that the wood was cracked just below the point where the shaft meets the crossbar. That hidden fracture, not the weight of the precious decoration, turned out to be the real source of the reliquary's structural weakness. The danger was real. The cross stood 76 centimeters tall, and at its most heavily loaded point, it was held together by a damaged wooden core nearly 900 years old. From the outside, the metal casing made the cross look solid and whole. Inside, the oak structure was split by a crack running right through the point the entire upper section depended on. The discovery of earlier interventions raised an uncomfortable question of its own. Who had opened up the cross before the specialists did in 2010, and why? All that's known is that there were several examinations, the most recent dating to the 1960s. The published museum account doesn't lay out the full history of that work. Preparation for a routine exhibition had unexpectedly turned into a rewrite of the artifact's museum biography. Bronze turned out to be brass. A seemingly solid structure hid a fracture, and traces of earlier investigations confirmed the reliquary had been opened and studied long before this latest inspection. But the most astonishing discovery came only after specialists reached the central setting and lifted out the rock crystal. When the central rock crystal was removed, along with its mount, a second cross was found underneath. It wasn't a separate object, and it wasn't a forgotten relic someone had tucked inside. The mark was carved directly into the surface of the oak core. For almost 9 centuries, it had stayed sealed under the crystal. Had you been standing in that lab, you would have been among the first people in 900 years to see it. The carved image had 2 horizontal crossbars. Today, that shape is known as the Lorraine cross. though the symbol itself predates the name by centuries. In medieval Christian tradition, it was associated with the true cross. The craftsman didn't carve it as decoration. The mark precisely marked the spot reserved for the central relic. Researchers determined the carved cross was made during the reliquary's original construction. This wasn't an accidental scratch or a mark left by a later repair. It was part of the maker's design. Even though, once the work was finished, it was completely sealed beneath the central mounting. So why spend the effort on a symbol no worshipper was ever going to see? The answer lies in the reliquary's own construction logic. The carved mark sat directly beneath the presumed fragment of the true cross, marking its sacred place inside the structure. To a medieval craftsman, invisible didn't mean unimportant. The symbol wasn't made for the public. It was made for the relic itself. Other traces turned up under the crystal as well. They suggested the original central assembly may have looked different from the one that survives today. Specialists proposed that a small round container once sat in that spot. The piece of wood venerated in Ireland as a fragment of the cross from Calvary may have been placed inside it. The container itself hasn't survived, and there's no direct proof it ever held the relic. Calling this a discovered reliquary capsule would be going too far. What researchers actually saw were traces of a lost round fitting. But its location, right beneath the rock crystal, matches exactly where the inscriptions say the sacred fragment was meant to be kept. What emerges is an almost perfect multi-layered system. The craftsman carved a Lorraine cross into the oak base. Above it, in all likelihood, sat a round container holding the relic. The whole assembly was sealed under a transparent rock crystal in its jeweled setting. Worshippers saw the relic through the stone, but could never touch it, while the hidden symbol beneath the container remained part of the object's inner religious architecture. Later, someone disturbed that system. The round container disappeared, the fragment of the true cross vanished, and the central section was, in all likelihood, reassembled. What remains today is only the crystal, its mount, and the mark carved into the oak. Neither the inscriptions nor the traces of earlier examinations answer the one question that matters most: exactly when the reliquary lost its contents. So the great discovery turned out to be both an answer and a new mystery at once. The Lorraine cross confirmed that the central cavity had a specific purpose from the very beginning. Traces of the round container let researchers roughly reconstruct the original assembly. But the more precisely they understood how the relic had been housed, the louder one other question became: who took it, and under what circumstances? The Cross of Cong wasn't commissioned by some anonymous monastery or a band of wandering craftsmen. Its patron was Turlough O'Connor, King of Connacht, one of the most powerful rulers in 12th century Ireland, referred to in the sources directly as King of Ireland. It was his decision that the relic brought to the island should remain within his own territory. According to the Annals of Tigernach, in 1123, the so-called Cross of Christ was carried through various regions of Ireland. Turlough asked for a portion of it and was granted his request. For that small fragment of wood, he ordered a reliquary with almost no equal anywhere in Ireland. The commission went to Roscommon, one of the most important church centers in the Kingdom of Connacht. The work demanded not just enormous resources, but an entire workshop. First, the oak core was carved, 76 centimeters tall. Then it was encased in brass plates, covered in gold, silver, and niello, and finished with filigree, glass, and enamel. At the center, they mounted the rock crystal beneath which the central relic was meant to sit. The name of the maker wasn't lost to time. The inscription on the cross asks for prayers for Mael Isu Mac Breton I Echach, the man who made the reliquary. Most craftsmen of that era went unnamed.
the maker of the Cross of Cong left something like a signature on his own work. Mael Isu almost certainly didn't work alone. A reliquary this complex demanded specialists in woodwork, casting, chasing, gilding, filigree, glass, and enamel. The inscription also preserved the names of the men who oversaw the project: Ireland's senior cleric, Muireadach Uadúfthai, and the Bishop of Connacht, Domnall MacFlanacan I Dúfthai.
Royal power, church leadership, and the workshop itself all stood behind the reliquary at once. This was never a private treasure meant to sit in a chest. The inscriptions turned the cross into an official document made of metal, wood, and gold, naming the patron, the maker, and the church leaders overseeing the work, and explaining the relic's purpose. Any literate cleric could read exactly whom Ireland owed for the reliquary's existence. The relic of the true cross suited Tordelbach's political ambitions perfectly. Its arrival in Connacht turned his territory into a pilgrimage center and set the king apart from every other Irish ruler. Under his patronage now sat a relic tied to the central event of Christian history, and that mattered more than winning another patch of land. There's a claim that the fragment was sent to Tordelbach by Pope Calixtus II. Nothing in the record fully confirms it, but even the rumor of Rome's backing worked in O'Connor's favor.
If the relic really had come from the Pope, the king could present it as recognition of his supreme authority. Connacht had no archbishop of its own, and Tordelbach was pushing to raise the region's church standing. A processional cross carrying a fragment of the true cross became powerful leverage. Carried before the highest church officials, it was practically a preview of the rank Connacht intended to claim. Patronage of churches and monasteries was a calculated investment. The king supplied money, precious objects, and protection. Church leaders, in turn, helped legitimize his rule. Even the inscriptions on the Cross of Cong served that purpose. Tordelbach's name sits alongside the names of powerful clergymen and the master who built the reliquary. The king made no attempt to hide his involvement. He had it cast in metal, permanently. Was Tordelbach a genuinely devout man? One doesn't rule out the other.
A medieval ruler could revere a relic and use it to consolidate power at the same time. The Cross of Cong was an object of faith, but its shine was meant, above all, to illuminate the man who commissioned it. A small fragment of wood became political capital. It gave the king the standing to speak for the Christian order and backed Connacht's claim to higher status. The name Cross of Cong suggests the reliquary was made in that small Irish town. There's no solid proof of that. The work was done in Roscommon, and its original destination may have been the church at Cong or another major center tied to Tordelbach. The name stuck to the cross much later because of where it spent the centuries afterward. Cong sat in what's now County Mayo and held a special place in the life of the O'Connor dynasty. The royal family patronized the local church and used Cong as one of its religious centers. As early as 1111, at the Synod of Rothbrasile, Cong's church was recognized as a cathedral seat, about 12 years before the famous reliquary was made. Sending the royal relic there was a natural extension of that status. In 1137, a fire damaged the church at Cong. Soon after, Tordelbach founded an Augustinian abbey there, cementing his dynasty's ties to the place. In time, the precious cross came under the abbey's care. The O'Connor's connection to Cong didn't end with Tordelbach's reign. His son Rory, called Ireland's last High King, spent his final years there with some of his own children. In 1198, his life ended at Cong. For the dynasty, Cong gradually became more than a monastery. It became a repository of family memory, and the cross standing there recalled a time when the O'Connors had claimed authority over all of Ireland. For centuries afterward, the relic remained in the Augustinians' care. States, rulers, and church orders changed, But the cross never left Cong. By the late 17th century, its existence was already backed by named witnesses. In 1680, historian Roderick O'Flaherty saw the cross and copied down its inscriptions. In 1822, antiquarian George Petrie examined it. The cross earned its name not from where it was born, but from where it lived for centuries. And without Cong, it might never have survived to the present day at all. By the early 19th century, the Augustinian abbey had long since lost its former power, and the cross was effectively in the personal care of the local clergy, with no museum, no security, no state register. The last Augustinian abbot of Cong was Father Patrick Prendergast. After his death in 1829, an uncomfortable question came up. Who now owned a relic the monks had guarded for centuries? Prendergast's successor, Father Michael Waldron, settled the question in the most practical way possible. He sold the Cross of Cong to the mathematician James McCulloch for 100 guineas. An object commissioned by a High King of Ireland changed hands like an ordinary piece of family property. No ceremony, no recognition of what it actually was. McCulloch, though, didn't keep it in a private collection. In 1839, he donated it to the Royal Irish Academy, and in the 1880s, the cross passed into the collection of what would become the National Museum of Ireland. There it finally got proper cataloging, professional security, and systematic study. The very study that would later uncover the mistaken metal, the fractured oak core, and the mark hidden beneath the rock crystal. That's how the journey from monastic relic to national treasure was completed. The cross survived the loss of its sacred contents, the abbey's decline, its passage into private ownership, and a sale for 100 guineas. What saved it wasn't a state program. It was one private buyer's decision to hand his acquisition over to scholars. But before the reliquary reached the museum, someone nearly took it back to Cong in the boldest way imaginable. Around 1870, a priest from Cong named Patrick Lavelle walked into the Royal Irish Academy. His request seemed harmless enough. He wanted to see the famous medieval cross. The staff had no idea they were looking at a man who had already decided to bring the relic home. And he didn't think he needed the Academy's permission to do it. Lavelle was shown the cross. He waited for the right moment, hid the reliquary under his cassock, and headed for the door. At 76 centimeters tall and 48 wide, it wasn't an easy thing to smuggle out unnoticed. And yet, Lavelle made it out of the building. His plan was simple: reach the railway station, leave Dublin, and carry the cross back to Cong, where the relic had spent centuries under Augustinian care. To Lavelle, the Academy wasn't a rightful owner. It was an institution holding on to a holy relic that wasn't theirs. He never made it to the train. The theft was discovered. Lavelle was caught on his way to the station, and the cross was returned to the Academy. The attempt to smuggle the relic out of Dublin had failed. Was Patrick Lavelle simply a thief? Technically, yes. He took something that wasn't his and tried to disappear with it. But the priest himself probably believed he was righting a wrong. The cross was never made for an academic collection. Father Waldron had sold it to a private buyer for 100 guineas, and that buyer handed it to the Academy. A chain of events the people of Cong might well have seen not as a legitimate change of ownership, but as the loss of a relic that had belonged to their church for generations. Lavelle chose to settle that dispute without negotiation, hide the cross under his robe, and carry it home. The story feels almost unbelievable because of who was involved. This wasn't a professional criminal trying to smuggle out a medieval treasure. It was a Catholic priest. He wasn't after the gold, and he had no interest in a private collection. His only goal was to return the relic to the place it had belonged to for centuries. But a noble motive didn't make the act any less dangerous.
By then, the oak core may already have carried a hidden fracture just below the crossbar, and smuggling it under a cassock, fleeing through the streets, riding a train. All of it put real strain on a structure that had survived nearly 7.5 centuries. One fall, and an object that had outlasted so much upheaval might not have survived that particular trip. After Lavelle's failed attempt, the cross stayed in Dublin. Cong never got the relic back. But it was that very museum custody that later made the technical examination possible, the one that looked beneath the central crystal. The priest wanted to carry the cross back into the past. Its future, instead, was permanently tied to the museum. The Cross of Cong never gave researchers a complete account of its own history, but it preserved the names of the people without whom it never would have existed. The inscription runs along the sides of the cross, starting at the bottom of the left edge. Most of the text is in Irish, with one formula repeated twice, written in Latin. First named is Tordelbach ua Cachavar. The inscription asks for prayers for the King of Ireland for whom the relic was made. The patron's status is recorded without modesty or qualification. Then the text names the church officials who oversaw the work, and finally, the craftsman. Mael isu mac braton wi echach. The inscription asks for prayers for the man who made the reliquary, a rare honor for a medieval craftsman. But the most important message is written in Latin. Along both sides of the shaft, the same formula repeats. Hac cruce crux tegitur qua passus conditur orbis. This cross covers the cross on which the Maker of the world suffered. A more literal reading is also possible. In this cross is preserved the cross on which the Creator of the world suffered. The medieval scribe made a small spelling slip in the word passus. It doesn't change the meaning. The inscription states outright that the large, precious cross served as a shell for another, much smaller fragment. This is exactly where the written record lines up with the modern examination. After the rock crystal was removed, specialists found a Lorraine cross carved into the oak core, along with traces of a round container that may have once held the relic. The inscription, the hidden symbol, and the design of the central setting all point to the same conclusion. The cross really was built to house a sacred fragment. What they don't prove is the authenticity of the relic itself.
There's no way to establish whether the missing fragment truly came from the wood of Calvary, or whether it was one of the many medieval fragments simply credited with that origin. For people in the 12th century, that doubt probably didn't exist at all. They saw a fragment beneath the transparent stone and read an inscription declaring it part of the true cross. Today, there's nothing under the crystal. What's known is that the cross was opened and examined more than once, with the last intervention before the modern inspection dating to the 1960s. No direct record of the relic's disappearance survives, but going by timing, the most likely window is the 16th or 17th century, the era of Ireland's monastic dissolutions and religious conflict, when church treasures were routinely hidden, melted down, or dismantled to keep them out of confiscators' hands. That's the leading theory, not a confirmed one. The question stays open. Who first opened the central setting?
Was the relic stolen, moved into another reliquary, or simply lost during one of the repairs? Neither monastic tradition nor the museum's own records give a final answer. Almost everything that once surrounded the relic has survived. Oak, nearly 9 centuries old, brass plates, gold, silver, rock crystal, the names of the patron and the maker. Only the object all that effort and expense was built around is gone. The Cross of Cong told researchers exactly what it was hiding. It never told them who emptied out its heart. If you've stayed with this until now, this story clearly means something to you. This channel exists for exactly those people. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next investigations into relics and discoveries that force us to look at official history differently. And tell us in the comments, when and how do you think the fragment this cross was built to hold disappeared?